Okay, today we are going to cover the first part of Samuel. Most of this, the first part, we're not going to talk about, the story of Hannah and the miraculous conception and birth of Samuel and so on. That's stuff that you'll know fairly well and we'll talk about in class. But starting in about chapter 4, I don't have you read that, but we get an important story that happens starting in chapter 4. And in this story, the Israelites go to war against the Philistines. Now, let me show you a little something about geography with the Philistines, okay? So, the Philistines, they descend from a seafaring people, and so they like the coastal plains. The Israelites like the mountain areas that's up here, Jerusalem, and all the see where these high hills are right here, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and so on. That's where the Israelites settle. That's their stronghold. The area that's in between is what we call the Shvelah. The lower hills, when you start to get out of the mountains like this, see these are all high mountains. These are low mountains as it works towards a plain. You can see this is all plain, high mountains. This is the transition area. And that Shvelah then is the point of contention between them. For much of biblical history, this is the problem. And so it is in the Shvelah that the Philistines, who come from their coastal strongholds to fight against the Israelites, they're in the Shvelah, and the Israelites are led by Eli's wicked sons. And they take the Ark of the Covenant with them to battle, hoping that that will help them be victorious. But of course they're not keeping the covenant, and so they aren't victorious, and they lose the battle. And the Ark of the Covenant is captured. Now, when Eli hears about this back in Shiloh, then he's so saddened and shocked at the news of his death of his sons and the loss of the ark that he falls over in his chair and he dies. And now Samuel will become the high priest. But in any case, in the meantime, you've got the problem of the lost ark. And the Philistines grab this ark and they bring it with them to Ashdod as a great trophy. And they're going to set it up in the house of Dagon, their god. But they keep finding that the statue of the god keeps falling over and breaking as a result of the ark being there. And they also find that nasty things happen to them. For instance, they keep getting emerods in their secret parts. We can guess roughly at what secret parts are. Emerods, we're not quite sure exactly what they are. Some people think tumors or boils or huge warts or something like this. We don't know what. But in any case, it's something physical because later they will make gold reproductions of them. After having so much trouble in Ashdod, they say they don't want it, so they send it to really the biggest Philistine city, which is Gath, where Goliath will be from. They have the same problem, so they send it to Ekron. They have the same problem, so it works its way around from Timnah, and then they send it off. They put it in a cart and whip the oxen, and the oxen take off, and so just this unattended ark comes here along the border, heading up this valley. What we call the Sorek Valley. So let's see here. I have a picture of that. Here's the Sorek Valley from up above, and right out here is the Philistine areas. You can see this is the beginning of the high hills, and these are the low hills. So we're in the high hills looking down at the low hills. This is where Samson was from. All of this is taking place in that same area. And we're looking down at Beit Shemesh right here, which is where the ark will end up. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Alright, so here's a close-up of this seam. On the other side of this is Philistine territory. Timnah is right there. They bring the ark right here and kind of whip these guys, and they start making their way up this valley. And we're looking at Beit Shemesh. There are ruins right here where the Israelites lived. And so, for instance, here's where Samson was from, and if you just look to the left of there, you get this area. We saw the close-up earlier. And this is where the ark will come up, and they will capture it there. One last thing to show you. We will talk more about the anointing of Saul next time, but let's look at Samuel. He is judge for all of Israel, and must be a minister for all of them, but the geographic area he goes in is fairly limited. We know he's often at Bethel and Mitzpah and Gilgal, and Ramah seems to be where he lives, so he goes in this kind of little circuit of doing rituals and offerings in these areas, and who knows what he does elsewhere. Anyway, so that's the part of the ministry of Samuel.